Hopi. The Hopi are a Native American tribe who primarily live on the Hopi Reservation in northeastern Arizona. As of the 2010 census, there are 19,338 Hopi in the United States. The Hopi tribe is a sovereign nation within the United States and has government-to-government relations with the United States federal government. Particular villages retain autonomy under the Hopi Constitution and bylaws. The Hopi language is one of 30 in the Udo-Aztecan language family. The majority of Hopi people are enrolled in the Hopi tribe of Arizona, but some are enrolled in the Colorado River Indian tribes. The Hopi Reservation covers a land area of 2,531 square miles. The Hopi encountered Spaniards in the 16th century and are historically referred to as the Pueblo people. Because they lived in villages, pueblos in the Spanish language. The Hopi are thought to be descended from the ancestral Puebloans, who constructed large apartment house complexes and had an advanced culture that spanned the present-day Four Corners region of the United States, comprising southeastern Utah, northeastern Arizona, northwestern New Mexico, and southwestern Colorado. The ancient Pueblans lived along the Mogollon Rim, especially from the 12th to the 14th century, after which time their cultures seem to have disappeared, but are thought to have contributed to modern Hopi and Pueblo communities. The primary meaning of the word Hopi is behaving one who is mannered, civilized, peaceable, polite, who adheres to the Hopi way. Some sources contrast this to other warring tribes that subsist on plunder. Hopi is a concept deeply rooted in the culture's religion, spirituality, and its view of morality and ethics. To be Hopi is to strive toward this concept, which involves a state of total reverence for all things, peace with all things, and life in accordance with the instructions of Musa, the creator or caretaker of earth. The Hopi observe their traditional ceremonies for the benefit of the entire world. Traditionally, Hopi are organized into matrilineal clans. Children are born into the clan of their mother. Clans extended across all villages. Children are named by the women of the father's clan. After the child is introduced to the son, the women of the paternal clan gather and name the child in honor of the clan's father. Children can be given over 40 names. The village members decide the common name. Current practice is to use a non-Hopi or English name or the parent's chosen Hopi name. The person may also change the name upon initiation to traditional religious societies or a major life event. Prehistoric architecture dictates how social structures influence the creation of homes before European contact. Many Hopi homes were created with Pueblo influence as well. Archaeological digs have uncovered various room structures reflecting social practices during this period. During the 1970s, a group of archaeologists assembled a few basic types of rooms used in prehistoric Hopi life: living rooms, storage rooms, and religious and ceremonial rooms. Each of these rooms allowed for the Hopi to hold ceremonies, cook, and even forge hunting equipment. The Hopi have always viewed their land as sacred, seeing themselves as caretakers of the land that they inherited from their ancestors. They did not conceive of bounding or dividing land. Agriculture is very important, and villages are now located atop mesas in northern Arizona. The Hopi originally settled near the foot of the mesas, but in the course of the 17th century moved to the mesa tops for protection from the Utes, Apaches, and Spanish. On December 16th, 1882, President Chester A. Arthur passed an executive order creating a reservation for the Hopi. It was smaller than the surrounding land that was annexed by the Navajo Reservation, which is the largest in the country. On October 24th, 1936, the Hopi people ratified a constitution creating a unicameral government where all powers are vested in a tribal council. The powers of the executive branch, chairman and vice chairman, and judicial branch are limited. The traditional powers and authority of the Hopi villages were preserved in the 1936 Constitution. As of 2005, the Hopi Reservation is entirely surrounded by the much larger Navajo Reservation. As a result of land disputes from 1940 to 1970 or earlier, the two nations used to share the government-designed Navajo Hopi Joint Use Area, but this continued to be a source of conflict. The partition of this area, commonly known as Big Mountain, by acts of Congress in 1974 and 1996, but as of 2008, has also resulted in long-term controversy. Oribe. Old Oribe is one of 4 original Hopi villages and one of the oldest continuously inhabited villages within the territory of the United States. In the 1940s, the village was recorded as having 1,500 to 3,000 residents. Early European contact, 1540 to 1680. The first recorded European contact with the Hopi was by the Spanish in AD 1540. Spanish General Francisco Vázquez de Coronado went to North America to explore the land. While at the Zuni villages, he learned of the Hopi tribe. Coronado dispatched Pedro de Tovar and other members of their party to find the Hopi villages. The Spanish wrote that the first Hopi village they visited was Awatovi. They noted that there were about 16,000 Hopi and Zuni people. A few years later, the Spanish explorer Garcia Lopez de Cardenas investigated the Rio Grande and met the Hopi. They warmly entertained Cardenas and his men and directed him on his journey. In 1582 and 1583, the Hopi were visited by Antonio de Espejo's expedition. He noted that there were 5 Hopi villages and around 12,000 Hopi people. During that period, the Spanish explored and colonized the southwestern region of the New World, but never sent many forces or settlers to the Hopi country. Their visits to the Hopi were random and spread out over many years. Many times, the visits were for military explorations. The Spanish colonized near the Rio Grande, and because the Hopi did not live near rivers that gave access to the Rio Grande, the Spanish never left any troops on their land. The Spanish were accompanied by missionaries, Catholic friars, and beginning in 1629, with the arrival of 39 friars in Hopi country, the Franciscan period started. The Franciscans had missionaries assigned and built a church of Awatowi. Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Spanish Roman Catholic priests were only marginally successful in converting the Hopi and persecuted them for adhering to Hopi religious practices. The Spanish occupiers enslaved the Hopi populace, forcing them to labor and hand over goods and crops. Spanish oppression and attempts to convert the Hopi caused the Hopi over time to become increasingly intolerant towards their occupiers. The documentary record shows evidence of Spanish abuses. In 1655, a Franciscan priest by the name of Salvador de Guerra beat to death a Hopi man named Juan Cuna. As punishment, Guerra was removed from his post on the Hopi mesas and sent to Mexico City. In 1656, a young Hopi man by the name of Juan Suni was sent to Santa Fe as an indentured servant because he impersonated the resident priest Alonso de Posada at Awatobi, an act believed to have been carried out in the spirit of Hopi clowning. During the period of Franciscan missionary presence from 1629 to 1680, the only significant conversions took place at the pueblo of Awatobi. In the 1670s, the Rio Grande Pueblo Indians put forward the suggestion to revolt in 1680 and garnered Hopi support. The Pueblo Revolt was the first time that diverse Pueblo groups had worked in unison to drive out the Spanish colonists. In the burning of Awatobi, Spanish soldiers, local Catholic Church missionaries, friars, and priests were all put to death, and the churches and mission buildings were dismantled stone by stone. It took 2 decades for the Spanish to reassert their control over the Rio Grande Pueblos, but the Catholic Inquisition never made it back to Hopi land. In 1700, the Spanish friars had begun rebuilding a smaller church at Awatobi. During the winter of 1700 to 1701, teams of men from the other Hopi villages sacked Awatobi at the request of the village chief, killed all the men of the village, and removed the women and children to other Hopi villages. Then completely destroyed the village and burned it to the ground. Thereafter, despite intermittent attempts during the 18th century, the Spanish never reestablished a presence in Hopi country. Hopi-U.S. relations, 1849 to 1946. In 1849, James S. Calhoun was appointed official Indian agent of Indian Affairs for the Southwest Territory of the U.S. He had headquarters in Santa Fe and was responsible for all of the Indian residents of the area. The first formal meeting between the Hopi and the U.S. government occurred in 1850 when 7 Hopi leaders made the trip to Santa Fe to meet with Calhoun. They wanted the government to provide protection against the Navajo, an Apachean language tribe, but distinct from other Apache. At this time, the Hopi leader was Nawa Yamtiwa. The U.S. established Fort Defiance in 1851 in Arizona and placed troops in Navajo country to deal with their threats to the Hopi. General James J. Carleton, with the assistance of Kit Carson, was assigned to travel through the area. They captured the Navajo natives and forced them to the fort. As a result of the long walk of the Navajo, the Hopi enjoyed a short period of peace. In 1847, Mormons settled in Utah and tried to convert the Indians to Mormonism. Jacob Hamblin, a Mormon missionary, first made a trip to Hopi country in 1858. He was on good terms with the Hopi Indians, and in 1875, an LDS church was built on Hopi land. Education. In 1875, the English trader Thomas Keam escorted Hopi leaders to meet President Chester A. Arthur in Washington, D.C. Luloma, village chief of Oribe at the time, was very impressed with Washington. In 1887, a federal boarding school was established at Keam's Canyon for Hopi children. The Oribe people did not support the school and refused to send their children 35 miles from their villages. The Keams Canyon School District was organized to teach the Hopi youth the ways of the European American civilization. It forced them to use English and give up their traditional ways. The children were made to abandon their tribal identity and completely take on European American culture. Children were forced to give up their traditional names, clothing, and language. Boys, who were also forced to cut their long hair, were taught European farming and carpentry skills. Girls were taught ironing, sewing, and civilized dining. The school also reinforced European American religions. The American Baptist Home Mission Society made students attend services every morning and religious teachings during the week. In 1890, Commissioner of Indian Affairs Thomas Jefferson Morgan arrived in Hopi country with other government officials to review the progress of the new school. Seeing that few students were enrolled, they returned with federal troops who threatened to arrest the Hopi parents who refused to send their children to school, with Morgan forcibly taking children to fill the school. Hopi land. Agriculture is an important part of the Hopi culture, and their villages are spread out across the northern part of Arizona. The Hopi and the Navajo did not have a conception of land being bounded and divided. The Hopi people had settled in permanent villages, while the nomadic Navajo people moved around the Four Corners. Both lived on the land that their ancestors did. On December 16, 1882, President Chester A. Arthur issued an executive order creating a reservation for the Hopi. It was smaller than the Navajo reservation, which was the largest in the country. The Hopi reservation was originally a rectangle 55 by 70 miles in the middle of the Navajo reservation, with their village lands taking about half of the land. The reservation prevented encroachment by white settlers but did not protect the Hopis against the Navajos. The Hopi and the Navajo fought over land, and they had different models of sustainability, as the Navajo were sheep herders. Eventually, the Hopi went before the Senate Committee of Interior and Insular Affairs to ask them to help provide a solution to the dispute. The tribes argued over approximately 1,800,000 acres of land in northern Arizona. In 1887, the U.S. government passed the Dawes Allotment Act. The purpose was to divide up communal tribal land into individual allotments by household to encourage a model of European American style subsistence farming on individually owned family plots of 640 acres or less. The Department of Interior would declare remaining land surplus to the tribe's needs and make it available for purchase by U.S. citizens. For the Hopi, the act would destroy their ability to farm, their main means of income. The Bureau of Indian Affairs did not set up land allotments in the Southwest. Oribe split. The chief of the Oribe, Loloma, enthusiastically supported Hopi education, but his people were divided on this issue. Most of the village was conservative and refused to allow their children to attend school. These natives were referred to as hostiles because they opposed the American government and its attempts to force assimilation. The rest of the Oribe were called friendlies because of their acceptance of white people and culture. The hostiles refused to let their children attend school. In 1893, the Oribe Day School was opened in the Oribe village. Although the school was in the village, traditional parents still refused to allow their children to attend. Frustrated with this, the U.S. government often resorted to intimidation and force in the form of imprisonment as a means of punishment. In November 1894, Captain Frank Robinson and a group of soldiers were dispatched to enter the village and arrested 18 of the Hopi resistors. Among those arrested were Habima and Lomohongya. In the following days, they realized they had not captured all Hopi resistors, and Sergeant Henry Hinser was sent back to capture Patopa, a Hopi medicine man known as one of the most dangerous of resistors. Eager to rid Arrivee of all resistors, government officials sent 19 Hopi men who they saw as troublesome to Alcatraz prison, where they stayed for a year. The U.S. government thought they undermined the Hopi resistance. However, this only intensified ill feelings of bitterness and resistance toward the government. When the Hopi prisoners were sent home, they claimed that the government officials told them they did not have to send their children to school, but when they returned, Indian agents denied that this was promised to them. Another Oribe leader, Lomohongoma, competed with Loloma for village leadership. In 1906, the village split after a conflict between hostiles and friendlies. The conservative hostiles left and formed a new village known as Hotavia. Hopi recognition. At the dawn of the 20th century, the U.S. government established day schools, missions, farming bureaus, and clinics on every Indian reservation. This policy required that every reservation set up its own police force, tribal courts, and appoint a leader who would represent their tribe to the U.S. government. In 1910, the census for Indians, the Hopi tribe, had a total of 2,000 members, which was the highest in 20 years. The Navajo at this time had 22,500 members who have consistently increased in population. During the early years of this century, only about 3% of Hopis lived off the reservation. In 1924, Congress officially declared Native Americans to be U.S. citizens with the Indian Citizenship Act. Under the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, the Hopi established a constitution to create their own tribal government, and in 1936 elected a tribal council. The preamble to the Hopi Constitution states that they are a self-governing tribe focused on working together for peace and agreements between villages in order to preserve the good things of Hopi life. The Constitution consists of 13 articles addressing territory, membership, and organization of their government with legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Hopi-Navajo land disputes. From the 1940s to the 1970s, the Navajo moved their settlements closer to Hopi land, causing the Hopi to raise the issue with the U.S. government. This resulted in the establishment of District 6, which placed a boundary around the Hopi villages on the first, second, and third mesas, thinning the reservation to 501,501 acres. In 1962, the courts issued the Opinion, Findings of Fact, and Conclusions of Law and Judgment, which stated that the U.S. government did not grant the Navajo any type of permission to reside on the Hopi reservation that was declared in 1882, and that the remaining Hopi land was to be shared with the Navajo as the Navajo-Hopi Joint Use Area. From 1961 to 1964, the Hopi Tribal Council signed leases with the U.S. government that allowed companies to explore and drill for oil, gas, and minerals in Hopi country. This drilling brought over $3 million to the Hopi tribe. In 1974, the Navajo Hopi Land Settlement Act was passed, followed by the Navajo Hopi Land Dispute Settlement Act of 1996, settling some issues not resolved in 1974. The 1974 Act created the Office of Navajo and Hopi Indian Relocation, which forced the relocation of any Hopi or Navajo living on the other's land. In 1992, the Hopi Reservation was increased to 1,500,000 acres. Today's Hopi Reservation is traversed by Arizona State Route 264, a paved road that links the numerous Hopi villages. Tribal government. On October 24th, 1936, the Hopi people ratified a constitution. That constitution created a unicameral government where all powers are vested in a tribal council. While there is an executive branch, tribal chairman and vice chairman, and judicial branch, their powers are limited under the Hopi Constitution. The traditional powers and authority of the Hopi villages was preserved in the 1936 Constitution. The Hopi tribe is federally recognized and headquartered in Kikatsmovi, Arizona. Economic development. The Hopi tribe earns most of its income from natural resources. On the 1,800,000 acre Navajo Reservation, a significant amount of coal is mined yearly, from which the Hopi tribe shares mineral royalty income. Peabody Western Coal Company is one of the largest coal operations on Hopi land, with long-time permits for continued mining. The tribe's 2010 operating budget was $21.8 million. The projected mining revenues for 2010 were $12.8 million. The Hopi Tribe Economic Development Corporation, or HTEDC, is the tribal enterprise charged with creating diverse, viable economic opportunities. The HTEDC oversees the Hopi Cultural Center and Walpi Housing Management. Other HTEDC businesses include the Hopi Three Canyon Ranches between Flagstaff and Winslow, and the 26 Bar Ranch in Eager, Hopi Travel Plaza in Holbrook, 3 commercial properties in Flagstaff, and the Days Inn Kokopelli in Sedona. Tourism is a source of income. The Moenkopi Developers Corporation, a nonprofit entity owned by the Upper Village of Moenkopi, opened the 100-room Moenkopi Legacy Inn and Suites in Moenkopi, Arizona, near Tuba City, Arizona. It's the second hotel on the reservation. It provides non-Hopi a venue for entertainment, lectures, and educational demonstrations, as well as tours and lodging. The project is expected to support 400 jobs. The village also operates the Tuvi Travel Center in Moenkopi. The tribally owned and operated Hopi Cultural Center on Second Mesa includes gift shops, museums, a hotel, and a restaurant that serves Hopi dishes. The Hopi people have repeatedly voted against gambling casinos as an economic opportunity. On November 30th, 2017, in his last day as chairman of the Hopi tribe, Herman G. Honey and Governor Doug Ducey signed the Hopi Tribe State of Arizona Tribal Gaming Compact, a year after the tribe approved entering into a compact with the state of Arizona. The historic agreement, which gives the Hopi tribe the opportunity to operate or lease up to 900 Class 3 gaming machines, makes Hopi the 22nd and last Arizona tribe to sign a gaming compact with the state. Culture. The Hopi Dictionary gives the primary meaning of the word Hopi as behaving one who is mannered, civilized, peaceable, polite, who adheres to the Hopi way. Some sources contrast this to other warring tribes that subsist on plunder, considering their autonym, Hopisinam, to mean the peaceful people or peaceful little ones. However, Molotki maintains that neither the notion peaceful nor the idea little are semantic ingredients of the term. According to Barry Pritzker, many Hopi feel an intimate and immediate connection with their past. Indeed, for many Hopi, time does not proceed in a straight line as most people understand it. Rather, the past may be past and present more or less simultaneously. In the present fourth world, the Hopi worship Masawu, who admonish them to always remember their gods and to live in the correct way. The village leader, Kimongwi, promoted civic virtue and proper behavior. Traditionally, Hopi are organized into matrilineal clans. When a man marries, the children from the relationship are members of his wife's clan. These clan organizations extend across all villages. Children are named by the women of the father's clan. On the 20th day of a baby's life, the women of the paternal clan gather, each woman bringing a name and a gift for the child. In some cases, where many relatives would attend, a child could be given over 40 names, for example. The children's parents generally decide the name to be used from these names. Current practice is to either use a non-Hopi or English name or the parents' chosen Hopi name. A person may also change the name upon initiation into one of the religious societies, such as the Kachina Society or with a major life event. The Hopi practice a complete cycle of traditional ceremonies, although not all villages retain or have the complete ceremonial cycle. These ceremonies take place according to the lunar calendar and are observed in each of the Hopi villages. Like other Native American groups, the Hopi have been influenced by Christianity and the missionary work of several Christian denominations. Few have converted enough to Christianity to drop their traditional religious practices. Traditionally, the Hopi are micro or subsistence farmers. The Hopi are also part of the wider cash economy. A significant number of Hopi have mainstream jobs. Others earn a living by creating Hopi art, notably the carving of Kachina dolls, the crafting of earthenware ceramics, and the design and production of fine jewelry, especially sterling silver. The Hopi collect and dry a native perennial plant called Thelesperma megapodicum, known by the common name Hopi tea, and use it to make an herbal tea as a medicinal remedy and a yellow dye. Albinism. The Hopi have a high rate of albinism, primarily in Second Mesa and West villages towards Hodavia, about 1 in 200 individuals.